As a next level leader, I believe you can become better than you ever thought you could be. The key is to figure out what your blind spots are and get them out of your way. Let's get started. This is The Blind Spot. Hey, welcome to this episode of The Blind Spot with Deb Seymour. I'm so excited that you're here. This is a great conversation that I had with my good friend, Leigh Lafever-Ayer. Leigh is the HR director for Enterprise Holdings all the way over in the UK. Yet when you hear this podcast episode, you are going to catch her Nashville, Tennessee twang. Yes, she's homegrown here in the States, but took the opportunity to move for a bigger role with the company. Leigh and I have known each other for over 20 years. She and I started as trainers together, and I've always enjoyed my conversations with her, and I know that you're going to love this one too. We dive into really the story that we tell ourselves about who we are versus how others view us. And sometimes the things that people think about us will actually help us. And we have some limits on what we think we can do, and others that see potential in us and share that information with us. It's a gift. So I know that you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. Enjoy and go be great. So Leigh, thanks for joining and welcome.
Thanks, Deb. I know there's a little bit of a time difference, and to all the listeners, you're not imagining it. I do not have a British accent. I am originally from Tennessee, although my family and friends might think my accent's changed a little bit. Although I was recently home, and after 2 days, I called my husband. He was staying here, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you're in Tennessee."
Oh, wow. The twang came back. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I'm sure that you have some really fun sayings that come out as well from growing up in the South that people in the UK are like, what are you talking about?
I do, but I don't say them. I'm really conscious about that because sometimes it just doesn't translate. It's true about being separated by a common language. And it's interesting too, because I hear some terms that my grandmother or my grandparents used to use, like my grandmother would say fiddlesticks all the time. And I hadn't heard that for years. And I moved here and somebody said fiddlesticks.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
That's like my grandma.
Yeah, that's cute. That's cute. So let's dive in a little bit about your career. And, when we were talking earlier about you joining me on this podcast, I told you that I thought you were really courageous. And I've always admired your ability to take such a big leadership role with whatever you were doing. And you have just done amazing for your career. So can you give a little snapshot of your last 25 plus years with the company and some of the highlights?
When you use the word courageous, I was kind of surprised. I don't know, maybe it's because sometimes the way you don't see yourself the way other people see you. And I think that's always something, to think about. And we can kind of come back to that. But I started with Enterprise. Actually, Deb, I've been with Enterprise over 31 years. So started as in the graduate program, like everybody else, and worked very entrepreneurial. I had a marketing degree. I graduated from Tennessee Tech University in Cookeville, Tennessee. And I moved to Nashville, to the big city, to start my career. And I'm like a lot of people. I was just looking for an opportunity. I thought, gosh, this sounds like a great opportunity. Let's give it a go for a year. Let's see what happens.
Sounds familiar.
I know, everybody says that, right? I think, everybody thinks you've got to have these 2, 5, 10-year career plans. And I've never really operated that way. And, maybe that's allowed me to do some things or take some risk I maybe wouldn't have taken. But anyway, so I worked my way up, and I was in operations, more in rental, for the first 12 years of my career. And then I realized that when I went home, the days I really loved what I was doing were the days I was really working with employees and coaching them and talking to them about the next steps in their career. And I think I've always kind of liked that supporting role in a way too. I've liked the opportunity to develop people and to support them and see them progress as much as I've liked to see my own career progress. And so And I was thinking about that. I was listening to one of your podcasts in preparation. I was thinking about that even in elementary school. Sometimes I like to be the person that was scripting and directing behind the scenes. That was really, really interesting reflection for me. And so I decided to move into talent development and training and development and develop people and, do what I love doing every day. And as you know, that's where I met you one night in St. Louis at
I
you know,
know.
a meeting. I think we had dinner at the Sheridan.
Yeah, probably. Probably. I think we were roommates for one of those events too one time. There's so
Yeah, I think
many.
so too. I think so
Fun
too.
times.
Yeah. And it's a great way that, we had never worked together before because you worked up north, I worked in Tennessee. It was like really great to meet. It's another way you network within the company and within the organization. And then I did that for a couple of years. And then when this opportunity came up, my husband and I said, why not? Let's just go for it.
Yeah, what a big jump. And, going back to what you said earlier, where how people view you is a little different than how you view yourself. And I would consider that possibly a blind spot.
I absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that. What did you get from that?
Well, it was really interesting because I don't know, gosh, it's been a few years ago. I was at a women in leadership event, and you probably know some of my work in gender equality. I'm really passionate in that space. And I was at an event, and this was one of our groups in the UK. And I think at the table, you were asked to describe your leadership style, and then other people described other people at the table. And I'm putting myself down as approachable, you know, all these things that I think I am in my role. And I hopefully I am, but I realize that other people see you differently. And, sometimes it depends on your, the hierarchy within the company and the organization, or sometimes they have perceptions of you because they don't really know you, don't work with them on a day-to-day basis. And as a leader in an organization, it's how do you get your message out to people and communicate to people about, what you are about. And so I really saved that. I saved my description of myself and their description of me. So I could just remember that as a leader, I have this responsibility because people are looking to me. And it was a really good reminder about how, people look to the leaders for more than you think they do. And as you progress within an organization, to you're just you, right? And you know what you want to accomplish, you know what leadership style you have in mind, but you've got to really, is your perception other people's reality? And how do you get that reality check as a leader? And sometimes you see people that make the mistake and they really don't do that. So it, evolves into the self or lack of self-awareness.
Totally. I know. I think like you hitting that 30-year mark at Enterprise, in my brain, I was still like 23, 25. I related so well to everyone. And you're right. The words and actions that we have as leaders in the position that we're in are just magnified. Our perspective may be a little different than someone else's, especially somebody brand new who doesn't have a history with us and just sees us as, oh, you're a level 3, you're a level 4. There's just this story that they're telling themselves about who we are. There's that gap.
Yeah, I think it's hard. Gosh, you've got to kind of put yourself in a different perspective to kind of sit back and say, gosh, maybe this role is aspirational to a lot of people. And how do I live up to that and live up to what I want to be as a leader too? And how can I do this authentically? Because what I see sometimes is when leaders aren't authentic, that's when they kind of make that mistake and go sideways a little bit. And so kind of bringing it back, being self-aware, always keeping good counsel with your direct reports and having that conversation and being really open and being vulnerable. Like I used this word not too long ago to describe somebody. And I said, they didn't probably realize it. They didn't realize it, but they had used the word vulnerable a few times in a conversation. It was about leadership. And I think that's kind of the, modern way to think about it. More people want to see leaders that don't always have all the answers and that are collaborative and ask for other people's opinions And that's okay. You don't have to be a great leader. You don't have to know everything, but it's the people that you bring along on the journey with you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think you're so right. And that probably starts with having some trust in yourself and then trusting of others and being able to have optimism that things are going to work out and just working well together with others. I love that. And I also wrote down a few things from what you were saying. There are some people that start with the company and they're comparing almost like their day one to like your year 30. And it's such a big time frame. And it's not the norm out there where there's people that stay with a company as long as I did and you are. And so how have you seen the development for newer people as it relates to impatience and them wanting more? How have you been able to gather them to want to, slow it down, take a step, really, really become more self-aware, as you say, and learn about themselves?
Well, I think we're in this time right now where things are changing really, really fast and quickly. And I don't know that anybody had the answers that worked even 2 years ago may not work anymore because people have choices. The pandemic has made people think about things differently. It's really kind of about getting people to understand about taking an opportunity that's in front of you. There is a little bit about you have to learn in any business, not just our business, but you have to learn a bit from the ground up. And then you have to look for opportunities to really show your strengths and your talents. And I think that's what happened to me when I came into the talent development side of the business. I never imagined, when I was in university and I was taking some of the more people related courses, like I was more of an entrepreneur. So that really wasn't where I had my focus, but it turned out to be where I had maybe my aptitude. So I think taking chances, working on projects, realizing that you've got to reassess, you're not, unless you're a founder of a company, you're probably not going to be CEO on day one, and that's okay. Do things that you enjoy. And if you enjoy, customer service, go with an industry that allows you to interact with customers. If you like more analytical side of the business, look for opportunities. The main thing is do things differently, volunteer for projects, take risk a little bit with your career.
Yeah. And even the taking risk part leads to, again, you putting yourself out there, maybe being vulnerable, using that word again, and knowing that there's going to be some times where it's a little tough. And that's, for me, that was where I learned, oh, this is where I'm growing. And for some people, that's their blind spot. And when things get tough, then they check out and they go work somewhere else. But they have the same patterns and they just kind of still get this to the same level at another company. And I love how you're talking about like take on new opportunities, try new things out. You're going to learn, and to find yourself at a company that allows you to grow, that is just priceless.
Well, I think it's about not only professional growth, but it's about personal growth too. Because I remember at one point thinking, and I can't remember really what I was doing, but I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, did I ever imagine I would have these kind of opportunities or I would do certain things? And I really, related that, my career allowed me to kind of do those things. And you're right. It's kind of about what are you doing to push yourself? I think in any career, if you're going to be really successful, it's not always going to be an easy road.
Right, right. And I think that's, again, where I go to the courage word with you. Like you picked up and you went to a whole other country. And did you have your daughter in the UK or was she born here?
She was born in the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it was hard. From a career perspective, it was easy. From a family perspective, that was hard because, if you relocate with the same company, it's kind of like I arrived here and it was a really similar environment to the US. It's just a lot of people spoke with British accents,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. Right.
And it was funny because I remember being in meetings, I'd be saying, oh gosh, this is how they say the word garage or instead of garage or lift
Yeah.
or,
Some words we heard from our mutual friend, Paul Sykes, and now you're living it out.
exactly. So Paul had given us a bit of an education, but actually Paul was still here when I moved
Oh,
here.
was he? Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I do remember in one of the meetings, we were working on something with recruitment, and one of the suppliers said, we'll have that report in a fortnight. And I just said, well, you're going to have to tell me how long that is because I haven't read Shakespeare in a long time. I was kind of joking. I said, is it 2 weeks?
Oh my gosh. I love it.
So we had a little bit of a joke about that, So it was really easy for me to come to work and kind of get into the environment. But for your spouse in any international relocation or your family, it's a little bit tougher because, they're not moving necessarily always with their career. Some people are really fortunate and they have companies that they can relocate with. But yeah, so it was like my husband was trying to navigate how to do business differently. I came home one day and he was like, do you know we pay bills quarterly here? And I was like, what? How are we going to budget? It just, you start thinking about things
The
differently.
water bill is quarterly. The electric bill is quarterly.
Actually, the water bill might be annually.
Oh, wow. I like that. That's streamlined, huh?
It's streamlined, but sometimes it's like, it's like thinking about things like your budget, or like sometimes it's about figuring out, gosh, where do we go to get this here? The stores are a little bit different. There's not a Walmart or a Target.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, I can even speak for myself moving to the Philadelphia region from Connecticut. It's the same thing. You're right. We worked with great people, and going, to another location, you're still with the same people. So that culture is fine. It's just more the personal stuff. So
yeah, and it's the ethos, and it's being away from your family and figuring out how to handle things as a team, in your relationship. And so that's a little bit of a challenge. It's about what you make for yourself. I've seen a lot of people make an international move and not be successful because they're comparing everything to home. And it's tough being away from family. But, the first year I was here, I actually went on a calendar and I showed my mom how many days we'd spend together when I was in the UK versus how many days we'd spent together the year before when I was in the US. And it was 3 times. I saw them much more. It didn't seem like it.
Oh, I get that because when I would go home to Connecticut, I would actually sleep over at my parents' house. And I had never slept over at my parents' house once I moved out and got married. So, I would even consider that a blind spot because your thought of what it's going to be like clouds really what is really the truth. And you use the calendar to prove the point to your mom. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I was still not sure she believed me. She said, well, I can't get in my car.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, now there's a direct flight on BA. It's only taken us a few years. You can get to from Nashville to here. But yeah, and it's a kind of about the quality versus quantity piece. We talk about that, about quality of time versus quantity of time. And, from a time management standpoint, how you're utilizing that. And that really, really became apparent. It was the best decision I've ever made. And lots of people, from a career perspective, because internationally, it is a similar company, similar ethos, and this is anywhere, right? But there's just different challenges doing business in different parts of the world.
Yeah. So what is your leadership characteristic that is your strength that you would say that you rely on, especially with these different opportunities that come your way? I call them opportunities instead of challenges.
Well, a couple. And one is, I think that, and I'm not sure I would have always said this about myself, but I think I'm a really good communicator. So in having to put together projects or different things, that is my strength, and just how I would create that kind of a plan and look out for things. And then it's about how I bring people together and allow them to be individuals. That's probably a strength, is I'm trying to find out I'm intuitive. I want to ask a lot of questions and find out as much as I can, but not be analysis paralysis, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think really one of the things I've learned about myself is once we do, get whatever project we're working on, whatever initiative we want to accomplish. It's really being able to bring people together and influence different groups of people to be able, so using my skills to, I'm not direct command and control in this role. I have to be able to influence people and talk to them about the why things need to happen and really help them along that way. Because if we understand the why, the other steps seem pretty easy. But sometimes we forget about the why. And, we've talked about this internally in the UK. We go to the how and the what. We're trying to get to that outcome rather than the strategic piece of what we want to accomplish.
Yeah. I would say that is what I hone in a lot with my clients that I coach. It's the, why is this important? What difference will it make for you? And just helping them see that there's a thread that connects and that allows them to step into that next role or something that just might be different. There's a little fear there. Fear of failure is probably the most common that I see, but you're right. There's influencing people to feel motivated to take that step.
Yeah. And something you said there, I think we've got to be less afraid of the fear of failure. We don't want people to feel like a failure, but we want people to know probably it's okay to fail and fail early sometimes because that'll lead us to a better outcome when we're looking at different initiatives or projects.
Yeah. And your ability probably to twist it around and almost say, hey, we expect some bumps. And actually, I'm hoping that we do so that we can get stronger and learn.
So we can learn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know. I find that people are more afraid of the feeling of failure, not just failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or being known, like that they weren't successful in something. And, that's why I think sometimes in organizations, and I guess, in a lot of tech and really innovative industries, they probably put maybe more of a badge of honor on failure because it helps figure out other things.
Oh, yeah,
that need to improve on.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. That 1 + 1 = 3 concept where your idea plus my idea will lead us to something even more better that I couldn't have done on my own. So absolutely. We just have a few more minutes and I want to talk about what the future looks like for you. So where are you a year or two from now? What's going on in your life?
Well, it's really hard. I mean, the pandemic is really, and I hate to go back to it, but I think it's caused everybody to maybe, reassess a little bit. I mean, to be fair, I think I'll be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think Donna likes you. She'll keep you on.
Yeah, exactly. My daughter will only be 16 then. So,
oh my gosh, she's a hipster.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love her. Yeah.
And then here she'll be going to university. Like she's got 4 more years. She's, only 14, but the school term's a little bit different. So, but there's a lot of things I want to do. I always laugh and say I have a book, I have a movie script, not about work at all, about my family and about some of my grandfather's and grandmother's experiences in World War II. And, so I'm always looking for what that next thing is, or I always have lots of good ideas. And I say they're good ideas. I tell my husband, he just says, and how am I going to make that happen? But to go back, even at this stage, I guess what I'm saying is I don't really have this big career plan for 5 or 10 years. And I think that if I had that kind of a plan, when I was 22, 23, 24, I would not be where I am now.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. But tell me more on that one, because I think that's a big thing.
Because I would not have taken some of the risk or had some of the experiences that I've been able to have. I mean, if I had said, I want to go down this track of my career, and that's what happens, I'm going to go down this track. That's the only track I can go on. I would have not had the 7 or 8 different roles at Enterprise that I'd had. I would have stayed on one thing and I would have gone in that direction. I also would not have met the people I met because I maybe put myself out there and I networked in a different way. I maybe would not have done some of the community pieces or work that I've done, here in the UK because I might have felt intimidated. I mean, I was on a college board of governors for 8 years. I didn't really understand the education system, but I knew I had something to give. And so I had to leave the imposter syndrome at the door and do what I felt was important at the time and something that I really wanted to do, and realize that, and probably Deb, one of the things is really finding my voice. And like I said, and when I look at back, I was always kind of the behind the scenes person. I like to script and direct, putting other people out there. And some of that is helping, find my voice and what's going to help me make other people realize, their dreams, particularly when I'm thinking about things around equality, how am I an advocate? How am I an ally? How am I a sponsor? How can I make a difference? So those are things I'm thinking about for now and the future. I know that was kind of probably a bit of a scattered answer.
No, I think that is so wise because you haven't put yourself in a box and you're really open to just whatever comes your way. You're always creative. I think that is a similar trait that we both have. And I think as trainers, we need to be creative and being okay with stuff that's coming at you. And then just like, you're probably grounding into your values around wanting others to, do well and helping and extending of yourself. And you're just like, okay, what's next? And just going with it, which is what I love about you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think you're so creative too. And I think what you're doing now and just, it's been I've loved seeing, your change and what you're doing for yourself. But creative is another word that if you ask me my top 10 things, I don't know that I would say. It took Friday flowers and flower arranging during the pandemic for me to say, oh, maybe I am a little bit creative.
Yes, you are. You got an eye.
And then I look back and I think, gosh, sometimes, but I always, my husband I always thought was the creative one because, he's a musician, he plays music, he writes music, he does all these things. And I'm creative in a different way. But that was my blind spot, right? I was thinking about creativity in a narrow scope.
Yes. You're thinking like magic markers and paintbrushes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And being able to put the puzzle pieces together. I think you said, communication, bringing people together, executing and influencing were your strong suits. And that takes a lot of creativity when you think about it. And just not like being so focused. You have that prism type of mindset, which is a strength of yours. So yeah.
And it's sometimes frustrating to my husband, for example, when I use that technique at home where I'm like,
I know I have that too. I think our husbands would probably like share stories because my creativity means, oh, I'm going out to dig some holes for the garden, aren't I? I'm like, oh yeah, we got to expand a little bit. So Leigh, thank you again. I'm really grateful that you wanted to share some time with me on my podcast and help a listener feel more inspired for their own career and look at how they can be a better leader of people. And I just think you're great. And thanks again for joining me.
Thanks, Deb. It was fun. Thank you.
What did you learn about yourself? What in this conversation got you thinking, maybe there's something to that. That's your blind spot. Continue this conversation with me. Send an email to hello@deborahseymour.com. Now, go be a great leader.